We're at part two now of the basics of long-term care in Wisconsin, put on conjunction with the Learning and Retirement series. What we're going to cover here in this video, we'll start with how much does long-term care cost? And as you can imagine, it will vary depending on what you need. So depending on the type of care that you need and where you are going to be receiving it geographically, anywhere it can differ depending on where you are in Wisconsin. It can differ depending on where you are in the country. But of course, one thing is certain, that it is expensive. It's expensive now. It's going to be even more expensive in the future. So if we start looking at the different services that we spoke about in the first part of this seminar. So at-home caregiving services, if you look at the numbers, these would be median cost projections nationally. For at-home caregiver services, you'd be looking at about $23 an hour. Wisconsin, the median cost is a little bit more than that, $25 an hour. Oshkosh, we're a bit down from the median for the state. We're at about $24 an hour. Now, it can get very expensive, obviously, if you just play those numbers out. So if you're looking for to get round-the-clock nursing home care level service at your home, so you can stay at home no matter how much care you needed, you could be spending over $17,000 a month, over $210,000 a year. That is going to dwarf easily the cost of even the most high-end, most expensive nursing home in this state. Assisted living costs. I did not include adult daycare because when it comes to the cost associated with that service, it's relatively small compared to staying at an RCAC or a CBRF. So just taking the numbers that we have available for these two services as a whole, not to segregate the two. Nationally, for the cost for staying in a facility, one of these two, you'd be looking at a little over $4,000 a month. Wisconsin is more expensive, about $43.50 a month. And Oshkosh, it's much more expensive, over almost $5,500 a month. Skilled nursing facilities, nursing homes, obviously, that's even going to be a big step up from those costs. Nationally, you're looking at over $8,500 a month. That's just over $100,000 a year. Wisconsin, we're going to be more expensive than that, almost $9,400 a month. Oshkosh, the current numbers have it as the exact same as the Wisconsin numbers. I kind of doubt this. I think we're more than this because this is a step down from the costs calculated in for last year's numbers. We were up about $10,000 flat a year last year. So now they have us listed as the where we are in Wisconsin. I question that. But nonetheless, even if this is true, obviously that's quite expensive. That's over $112,000 per year. Future projections. We're going to stick on skilled nursing facilities, stick on nursing home projections. Future projections of what these costs are going to be. By the end of this decade, so start of the 2030s, you'd be looking at over $13,000 a month. And then every 10 years after that, it's just going to keep going up and up. And here we are, 2069 is the furthest out we have any projections for, $41,000 a month. I'll be 89, so that'd be my time to be considering this if I'm lucky enough to live to that age. That's just under $500,000 a year if they continue growing at their current rate. These figures, I'll tell you where I got them. Median costs for prospective areas based on the Genworth 2019 Cost of Care Survey. And there you can find median averages or median cost projections for the various level of services throughout the country, through states and many localized districts within the state. The easiest to find it is just to remember, you just Google Genworth cost of care, and the cost of care survey will be the first thing that pops up. This is what the page looks like. At least it was looked like last year. This is a screenshot from the 2018. We're up to 2019 numbers now. We could be getting the 2020 numbers possibly this month, possibly next month. to update them. But this is essentially what it's going to be looking like when you go to, and again, this is an old screenshot. It's going to look a little bit different. But as you can see, you can take a look at, say, this is Wisconsin, the state median. And you'll see the cost for home health care, adult daycare. As you can see, that's expensive, but not nearly the cost as you'd find for also assisted living facilities and nursing home care. And you can take a look at the hourly, daily, monthly, and annual median costs. So one very, very, very important note, Medicare does not cover long-term care costs. The only thing that Medicare will cover related to long-term care is for rehab purposes, like we talked about in the first part of this seminar. And that would only be for, as you see here, up to 100 days of rehab services. And after day 20, there'd be a copay involved. So Medicare would cover the first 20 days completely, and then about 2/3 of the cost or 60% of the costs for the next 80. And that's not all the time. There are very specific hoops that have to be jumped through while you're in the hospital in order to get Medicare to cover this rehabilitation service. But regardless, on day 101, you are on your own unless you have another plan in place. And what's the first option for such a plan would be our next section here, long-term care insurance. First, disclaimer, I do not sell long-term care insurance. I do not partner with anybody who does. There's no quid pro quo for this. If everybody in the world got long-term care policies, I'd be out a good amount of my business. But I do believe in it as a worthy product to start your long-term care plan options with. So let's talk about the basics. There are very few people who have long-term care insurance. Most people will have health insurance, obviously, particularly as they age, but very few people actually look into long-term care insurance, perhaps not realizing that their health insurance and Medicare will not cover their long-term care costs. Policies will differ on what's covered, how much can pay out on a daily, monthly, or maximum or lifetime maximum. And so you could be looking at, say, our maximum $200 a day, maybe $5,000 a month, $250,000 lifetime. You'd be looking at some numbers like that would be an option. An elimination period, there'd be a specific time, usually 3 to 4 months, sometimes up to 6 months, where you have to be receiving long-term care already before your insurance is going to kick in. Long-term facilities love them because that means that they're going to get paid the private pay rate, which is more than they would be receiving on the Medicaid rate. And I'll talk about that in a later section. 3 different types of policies I want to cover. First is what would just be called traditional long-term care policies. It's similar to health insurance. You will have regular premiums. They can and often do go up as time passes. If you stop paying, your benefit evaporates. And as I said, most have daily, monthly, or lifetime caps on benefits, and most will have an elimination period, usually about 90 days, can be more, can be less, but rarely less. They're harder and harder to find. In the last 15 to 20 years, a lot of insurers stopped offering traditional long-term care policies because the insurers were losing their shirts. There was too much cost involved in insuring for long-term care costs. So it's very, very difficult to find one of these policies anymore. They are use it or lose it. If you're paying for long-term care insurance for 40 years and then you die peacefully in your sleep without ever having long-term care, then then that money is gone. All those premiums are gone. Policies are harder to find the longer you wait, and premium estimation calculators can be found online. I found one recently. Genworth has one. I don't work for Genworth, by the way. I just think they have some pretty good online information. I looked it up, and just some basic information I put in. I noticed that somebody who was 55, the premium for somebody who's 55 is just slightly less than the premium for somebody who's 60. So you're not hurting yourself too much if you wait until you're 60, but then it starts going up pretty quickly from there. Significant jump between 60 and 65 if you wait. Massive jump when you're up to 70, double of what you'd be paying at 60. Important to have in your policy, if you can, would be an inflation rider, which means your benefits go up as the cost of care goes up. Because the cost of care is going up at a rate anywhere from 3 to 5% every year. So you want your benefits to go up, because if you buy a policy or you buy into a policy now that says, oh, this will work great for me if I have to go into a nursing facility tomorrow, but 20 years from now, it's going to be insufficient, or at least for your planning purposes. I have seen policies brought to me by some of my clients that would cover at max $60 a day when the cost for a nursing facility would be over $300. I'm not saying get rid of those policies. I would not turn down a 20% discount, but it's essentially a drop in the bucket, and you're going to have to be looking to cover a lot of those other costs yourself. Asset-based policies are a bit of a new phenomenon when it comes to long-term care policies. So you'd have single premiums, big lump sum payment up front, and it's going to be significant investments. Minimum, you'd be looking at for an individual anywhere between $40,000 and $50,000 at minimum. You might want to consider more. The benefit will be double or sometimes triple the premium you put in, depending on a few factors, including age. So if you put in $50,000 and you get the triple premium, then if you need long-term care, you'll have $150,000 in benefits waiting for you. It's not use it or lose it. If you don't end up using those premiums, the premiums come back to your family. So you are sacrificing the income and the growth on those premiums. So the $50,000, it's not going to increase unless what you get out of it's not going to increase unless you need long-term care. But it's not use it or lose it. So you would be looking at funds that you have in an account that's not doing much good for you. Most CDs don't do that much good for us anymore. Definitely savings accounts are not that much anymore. It's collecting dust. So if you have a fair amount of funds in an account that's not doing much for you in the long run, these types of policies would be probably worth the investment. Another new recent phenomenon: hybrid life insurance policies. So certain policies have what's called a long-term care rider. So it's a combination of the previous two, the traditional and the asset-based, in a sense that you will pay regular premiums because it is life insurance. You pay regular premiums, but you avoid the use it or lose it issue. What happens would be if you need long-term care, then you would have a fair amount of benefits in that arena. But if you don't need it, then it comes down to your family as life insurance. Obviously, this is expensive. Obviously, the death benefit would not be as high as straight long-term care, straight life insurance without the long-term care rider. But this would be, in a sense, the best of both worlds if you can afford it. I recommend that everybody look at long-term care insurance, regardless of your age. Just give it a once-over. Talk with your insurer or an insurer who sells these types of policies and see what would be available for you. Because if you do have the ability to get a policy that's within your budget, that would be the first option I would recommend for a long-term care plan. It could provide you the coverage you need and give you a lot of freedom down the line if you actually do require long-term care in a way that alternatives might not. But it won't be for everybody. Some folks are not going to be able to afford the premiums, or they're not going to have a policy offered to them due to age or health reasons. There are alternatives, and we'll be talking about those alternatives in the next video in this seminar.